All right, thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. Just like Meredith said, my name is Chris Blunt. I just want to take this time real quick to thank Meredith and Julie and all the rest of the staff at MEFA for putting this together and affording me the opportunity to be here with you and give you a little bit of information on Veterans Administration education benefits. I am battling a little bit of a cold right now, so please excuse that and bear with me as much as I fight through it. So I'll save my experiences. Meredith basically kind of gave you my background. I am a student, full-time student at Massasoit. I'm currently using the GI Bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill, but starting next semester I will be using vocational rehab, and I'll be talking a little bit about that. So without further ado, let's see. All right. So a little bit what we're going to be talking about. So we'll talk a little bit about the application process for applying for the education benefits through the Veterans Administration. We'll talk about the Montgomery GI Bill, the benefits associated with it, what the eligibility criteria is for it. We'll talk about the post 9/11 GI Bill. So you're going to see chapters, and these are just what the VA refers to them as. So the Montgomery GI Bill, that's the Chapter 30, and for the reserve component, that's the Chapter 1606. The post 9/11, that's the Chapter 33. And then we'll talk about the benefits for that, levels of eligibility, vocational rehab, also known as the Chapter 31, the benefits and the eligibility associated with it. And then the Dependents Education Assistance, or Chapter 35, again, benefits and the eligibility for it. So the application process. It can be can take a little bit of time. So you want to submit the applications for whatever benefit that you see that you're going to be eligible for, and you want to submit it as early as possible. So you can do it by paper form. And the paper form for chapters 30, 33, and 1606 is going to be the VA Form 22 TAC 1990. And you can do that manually and bringing it to your school's certifying official, and they'll fax it into the VA. You can mail it, or you can, the most expedient manner is through the VAUGHN app. And the VAUGHN app is the Veterans Online application. And I have a link towards the end of the presentation for anybody that might need that. So the process can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks for the VA, once they've received your application, to actually determine what your eligibility is, and then send your certificate of eligibility. And the certificate of eligibility, it's sent directly to you, and that is basically the piece of paper that you need to bring to your institution of education for them to certify you and make sure that the school gets paid on your behalf, and also that you get paid. With that being said, if you're running a little bit behind with the process, you don't need the certificate of eligibility right away in order to register for your courses. If you go down to your veterans office at your school and talk to the certifying official or the veterans rep, they can put, in most cases, a hold on your account until you actually get your certificate of eligibility, and then they'll just basically backdate you for that. So if it's submitted too close or at the start of the semester, you just want to be cognizant that it can delay the process, and while your tuition and fees will still be paid for and you won't have to pay or worry about that, it will put a little bit of hold on your housing allowance and other associated allowances. So that's why you want to submit the VAUGHN app as early as possible. And even if you're still on active duty, you still want to go ahead and submit the application for your benefits before you're being discharged. And then once you've actually been discharged, then you can just send the VA a copy of your DD-214, letting them know that you've been discharged. Because while you're still on active duty, if you apply for the GI Bill benefits, because you're already receiving housing allowances and other subsistence allowances, you can't basically double dip. So if you were to apply for it the VA would say, okay, you're on active duty, so you're not eligible to receive the housing allowance. And so that's why you would need to submit your DD-214. For Chapter 31, the form that you want to submit is the VA Form 28, TAC 1900. And you can do this by paper form again, or you can do it through e-benefits. If you don't have an e-benefits account, I highly recommend that you have one. It is basically, you know, for the Marines, we had Marine Online, you know, our official military personnel file. E-benefits is basically your site as a veteran that connects everything from your military service. And the form on e-benefits for Chapter 31, the vocational rehab, it's simply a couple clicks of the button. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these programs here in a minute. Again, you want to submit this as early as possible. The VA can take a little bit of time with the voc rehab. It's a little bit more time-staking as far as the process goes. It can take up to 6 months or more from the time that you submit your application until you actually get approved for it. In order to enroll in courses, it's not like the post 9/11. You have to have at least contact with a voc rehab counselor in order to enroll for classes, in order for them to approve you for whatever program you're looking to get into. Excuse me. And you know, a little bit of the process for the vocational rehab, they basically, once you submit your application, they'll send you a packet, and they'll ask you to do a few different things. You have to do some job research on what your future aspirations are, what schools you're aspiring to attend, and basically a skills assessment to see where you're at individually and see what kind of program or plan will be best suited to you. So the first one we'll talk about, first program, is the Montgomery GI Bill, also known as the Chapter 30. And the benefits, so you're entitled to 36 months of benefits, or 48 months maximum under 2 programs. And that goes along with any of the VA programs. While the Montgomery and the post 9/11 and some other programs, they initially say 36 months is what you're entitled to. That's true, but if you were to start out using the Montgomery GI Bill and you use that up for, say, 12 months, and then you transfer to the post 9/11, then you could use the post 9/11 for 36 months for a total of 48 months of benefits. For the Montgomery GI Bill, it usually expires within 10 years of election. Depending on individual circumstances, the VA will determine what that delimiting date is. You receive a monthly allowance that's paid. It's directly to you as a student, and as a full-time student, depending on what the institution considers full-time. Most institutions is 12 credit hours. You're going to receive $1,857. And it goes all the way down to quarter time or less, it's $464.25. So for the eligibility for this, you have to have an honorable discharge, and these are all concurrent criteria, so you have to have all of these to be eligible. So honorable discharge, high school diploma or equivalent, and meet the requirements of one of the categories that the VA outlines, and I'll show you what those criteria are on the next slide. So when you initially signed up for the Montgomery GI Bill, probably in boot camp, you would have elected to the buy-up program, and that would basically just add some additional funds. It would add to that monthly allowance paid to you if you paid into that. If it doesn't sound familiar to you, then you probably didn't do it. So these are the various categories. I don't know that I can really need to go through all 4 of them. There's a lot of information there. You have the slides. The VA is very particular when it comes to eligibility requirements. But overall, you have to have paid into for your first 12 months, paid $100 a month, totaling into $1,200 to contribute to the Montgomery GI Bill. Had to have an honorable discharge. A lot of these are, pre 9/11 and Vietnam era criteria. So if you fall into those, then you would look at those specific criteria. Chapter 1606, this is also the Montgomery GI Bill, and this is the version for the selected reserves or National Guard individuals. And similar benefits, you're entitled to 36 months of benefits, 48 months maximum under 2 programs again. However, the monthly allowance is significantly lower. For a full-time student, it's $369. If you're less than half-time, it's only $92.95. So it's very, I want to point out that when you're using, I see students that come in and they're in the reserves or the Guard, and they want to register, they want to apply for their Chapter 1606. One thing they must be cognizant of is once you start using your benefit, you're exhausting your benefit. So if you were to say wait until all of your time was up within the military or the Guard or whatever the case is, you would have a higher percentage and be able to get more bang for your buck, basically, if you were to just wait on using your benefits. More especially if you're in the Guard. Massachusetts has the Mass National Guard tuition and fee waiver. So the eligibility for the Chapter 1606, you have to have a 6-year obligation in the selected reserves. You have to complete your initial training, so you got to complete your boot camp. And again, you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. And you can't use, with this one, you cannot use 12 hours towards a college degree to meet this requirement. Remain in good standing while serving in the active selected reserve unit. And that's it for the Chapter 1606. Post 9/11. This is the big one. So the post 9/11 GI Bill benefits, they pay out all tuition and fees for the highest public in-state tuition. In Massachusetts, I believe the highest public in-state tuition is UMass Amherst, somewhere around $21,000, $22,000 a year. And so what does that mean versus a private institution? Say you want to go to Bentley, Northeastern, then the GI Bill will pay whatever the highest in-state tuition. So going back to UMass Amherst, for example, so they'll pay up to UMass Amherst $21,000, $22,000, and then anything beyond that you would be responsible for, unless the institution is a participant of the Yellow Ribbon program. And the Yellow Ribbon program is something that the school has an agreement with the VA and basically says anything beyond what the VA is paying us, we will cover up to a certain amount for a certain amount of veterans per year. So say Bentley, for example, their tuition is somewhere around $45,000, $46,000 a year. So the GI Bill will cover $21,000, and then Bentley is a participant of the Yellow Ribbon program for up to 10 students a year, up to $10,000. So that brings you up to $31,000 in tuition and fees, and then the VA says, okay, whatever the school pays, we will match that. And so then you're up to $41,000. So then you're looking at maybe $4,000 or $5,000 coming out of pocket for a private education. So it's very important to look at these types of things when you're starting to use the post 9/11 GI Bill, and not to hold yourself back from the possibilities, because there are lots of benefits out there, and there are a lot of different things that are available to you. So monthly housing allowance, just like when you're on active duty, you receive the BAH, the basic allowance for housing, and it's based off of whatever the zip code is for that institution, not for where you live, but for where the school sits, and that's it's determined by the DOD and the travel office, and they have a calculator for what the individual housing allowance rates are for various areas. So for example, Boston's housing allowance is just over $3,000. So you would be receiving the monthly housing allowance along with the tuition and fees being paid for, and then you receive an annual book stipend. The annual book stipend is $1,000 a year, and they usually break that down into 2 semesters. So it calculates out to be about $42 per credit hour, and so it's usually about, if you're taking a full course load, then you'll get about $500. They usually split it up, give or take a few dollars each semester. The benefit will expire 15 years from the date of your last discharge. And again, you're entitled to 36 months or 48 months maximum under 2 different VA education programs. So if the same benefits are going to be available if you're transferring your benefits onto, say, a spouse or a child, and I'll talk about the requirements with that here in a minute. So this is just a table of what the eligibility looks like. So in order to receive 100% of benefit, you have to have at least 36 months of active duty service, or at least 30 continuous days on active duty, and discharge due to service-connected disability. And then it just drops down, the percentage of benefit drops down depending on your time of service. And then, so what this means, the percentage is the percent that the VA will pay of the tuition and fees to the institution, and then also the percent of housing allowance that you will receive. So the rate of pursuit, 7 credits, that's the minimum that you have to be in order to start using the GI Bill, and you will receive 60% if you're only taking 7 credits, and then it varies depending on the institution and depending on how many credits you're taking, so it can go from there up to 100%. So again, say if you have a percent of eligibility for the GI Bill, say you have 60%, so the school is only going to cover, the GI Bill is only going to cover 60% of the tuition and fees, you'll receive 60% of the BH, and then say you're only taking 7 credit hours, you will only get 60% of what you've received, so 60% of the 60%. So it's definitely in your best interest and to get the most out of your benefits to be going full-time, 12 credits or whatever that institution of higher learning considers to be full-time. So the transfer of entitlement, you have to have at least 10 years of service, and you had to, so you basically have to elect that you're transferring it to either your child or your spouse. You have to submit this election while you're still on active duty or while you're still in the service, because you can be either on active duty or in the reserves. But in order to transfer it, you have to elect that while you're still in. The transferee must then, once you've elected to give it to them, then your spouse or child must submit an application just as you would, basically saying that, yes, I accept these benefits and I want to start using the benefits. So the transferor, whoever is the veteran is that's transferring it, retains the right to revoke the benefits at any time. For spouses, there is a 15-year delimiting date after the veteran is separated, discharged. For children, they can start using it at the age, must be at the age of 18 and have receive the high school diploma or equivalent. They're not able to use it after the age of 26. So if you are transferring it to a child, you want to get on their butts and make sure that they're starting to use that as soon as they get out of high school. The Fry Scholarship, so this is the Gunnery Sergeant Fry scholarship that's been made for spouses and children, and this is for a family member that died in the line of duty while they were on active duty, and they're post 9/11. Again, you receive 36 months of benefits, and the child's eligibility ends on their 33rd birthday. And with this, it's a different form for the Fry Scholarship. It is the Dependents Education application, and it's the VA Form 22 Tech 5490. Okay, vocational rehab. So vocational rehab, like I said before, it's basically it's similar to the GI Bill, and it's, if you have a service-connected disability and you need some retraining or whatever the case is, then you can apply for this. We'll talk about that here. So you receive the subsistence allowance, the housing allowance, if you're eligible for the housing allowance. So you have to be eligible for the post 9/11 in order to receive the actual housing allowance rate. If not, then you will receive, it's a different subsistence allowance that the VA will determine based on what your need is. So if you apply for vocational rehab and your percentage for the of eligibility for the post 9/11 GI Bill is less than 100%, then once you are approved for voc rehab, you receive 100% rate of the housing allowance. They pay directly for books and supplies for school, so instead of having your annual book stipend, they just pay for whatever books and supplies you need outright. Obviously, it has to be approved through your counselor prior to that happening. So if you need a laptop for your classes, they'll take care of that. If you need a printer or scanner, something like that, something that will require you, something that you're required to have for whatever your training purposes are. So in addition to paying the tuition and fees, they also pay all of private tuition and fees. So that's kind of another big thing for voc rehab. The eligibility for voc rehab is you have to have a discharge other than dishonorable, and you have to have a service-connected disability rating of at least 10%. Obviously, a little bit more than that is going to give you a better chance at getting approved for voc rehab, but the minimum service-connected disability is 10%. So the Dependents Education Assistance, again, this is the VA Form 22 TAC 5490, so it's different than the forms that you would fill out with the other benefits. And with this one, this is basically for let's see, the son, daughter, spouse of a veteran who has died or permanently and totally disabled due to a service-connected disability, and you receive the monthly stipend up to $1,024, and that's for a full-time rate of pursuit. And it's paid directly to the student or whoever is receiving the benefit, and so it's not like some of the other benefits where the GI Bill or like the post 9/11 where the VA pays the school and then you get additional money. All of the money, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but just like for the Montgomery GI Bill, the money is paid directly to whoever's receiving the benefit, and then they are responsible for paying their tuition and fees after that. With the Dependents Education Assistance, the stipend is received after the month of education that they're, so you enroll in September and you take classes for September, the first payment that you will receive will be on October 1st. So you would be responsible for paying for the tuition and fees up front, and then you would receive the stipend after the fact. And it can be used just like many of the other programs. I don't think I mentioned this in some of the other slides, but you can use a lot of these VA programs for degree, certificate programs, apprenticeship, and OJTs. And it goes a lot more in depth with the apprenticeship and OJTs, and there's so much information, and you know, this isn't an exhaustive PowerPoint by any means. I just wanted to try and give you guys some of the basic stuff. So again, eligibility is for the son, daughter, spouse, and if they died from any cause if they died from a cause of a service-connected disability, if they're a POW MIA, children, age 18 to 26, and for spouses, it's 10 years from the date of death or what the VA determines their eligibility. So that pretty much wraps it up. I think I wrapped it up pretty quick. I got a few links here for additional resources, and now I'd like to open it up for any questions that anyone might have for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. That was really wonderful. We've got a couple questions, so I'll go ahead and read them out. One is clarification about GI benefits. If I assume the student is going half-time, how much is the monthly allowance? The PowerPoint shows the full-time versus quarter-time. So what if the student's half-time?
So if the student is going half-time rate of pursuit, so say if the school determines that 12 credits is full-time, if they're taking 6 credits, is that?
I would assume, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so then they would only receive, so for the housing allowance in Massachusetts is $3,000, so they would only receive the 15, no, not Massachusetts, for the Boston housing allowance is just over $3,000. So if they were going half-time, they would only receive half of that, $1,500. But, so the tuition and fees, it's paid in full, but the housing allowance, they would only receive half. Same thing if you were going 3/4 time, the same idea would be applied there.
Great. Okay, thanks. Next question, do you still get the post 9/11 GI Bill or Montgomery Bill benefits if you are undocumented but qualify otherwise?
I don't know if that's in what they mean by undocumented, if they're speaking in respect to their discharge status.
I think that what we mean is not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, so an undocumented, not a citizen.
Oh, I haven't come across anything with that, and that's something that would have to be hashed out, I guess, specifically with the VA. I haven't come across any situations with that, but yeah, I don't want to speculate, and I don't want to give any false information. So.
Okay, so the student.
But these resources here, they can certainly find a lot of the information on the VA School Certifying Official Handbook. That is what all of the certifying officials that work in the veterans offices at all the educational institutions, this is what they go by, and this is what they're trained on. So a lot of the information can be found in that handbook.
Okay, great. So refer to that handbook. That's helpful. Next question, what would be the first step for a student to find out just the benefits that the student is eligible for?
So the first step would be to apply, basically, and then the VA will have all of their information from their application and then from their military records, and then the VA would determine what their level of eligibility is. And I mean, you kind of have an idea off of, I don't know what slide it was here. It's going to be a kind of painstaking, but so if you kind of look here, this will give you an idea of what your percentage of eligibility will be based off of what your training is. So, you know, all the way down from at minimum of 90 days, that will give you 40%, and then all the way up to 3 years or 36 months of active duty, up to 100%. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, that's great. Chris, in your experience, do most financial aid offices in colleges and universities have someone in particular that veterans should or could be in contact with?
So all institutions that I have encountered will have, if they do not have a veterans office or a veterans counselor advisor, then they will have somebody in the financial aid office that is a VA certifying official and will be able to answer whatever questions they have, and they're the ones that will basically be certifying the student for their benefits.
Okay, great. And do veteran students have to complete the FAFSA? If so, is there anyone in particular who could help them fill it out accurately?
You don't have to fill out the FAFSA, but I would highly recommend that you do fill out the FAFSA, more especially if you're a full-time student and you're a veteran and you've recently discharged. You could be eligible for a lot of different grants and scholarships, well, not scholarships, but grants and certain loans. So I know at Massasoit in particular, we have, whenever the FAFSA deadlines are coming out, they have seminars where they actually have the financial aid office will sit down with students and, you know, kind of walk them through the process of filling out the FAFSA. So if I would highly recommend that you go down and the student talk to their financial aid office to help them out with filling out the FAFSA.
Okay, that's great. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. I know Chris had included, Chris, if you want to put up that last slide again.
Yep.
That would be great. And what we'll do, we're going to send out this recording to all of you that registered. I'll also send a copy of these slides. So if you weren't able to grab them from your GoToWebinar panel, I'll send them out to you so that you'll have a copy of them. And then feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to Chris. Feel free to reach out to MEFA if you have additional questions. If you misplaced Chris's information, we're happy to pass it on to you. So thank you so much.
There's my information there. So thanks so much, Meredith, and I hope this was a good opportunity and a good learning experience for everyone.
This was great. Yeah, so helpful. Thanks so much, Chris. And everyone on the line, have a great day. Thanks for joining us.